I am going to tell you a story about how my cat is a murderer. So, this past winter break, I took my cat, Milo, home for break, so I didn't have to leave him here in Chicago by himself. So, I took him home on the plane, and he was pretty good on the plane, and I got him home to my house in Pittsburgh. We have 2 other cats and 1 bird. And Milo got along with the cats really well. It took him a little bit of time to warm up to the cats and get used to the bigger house that I have in Pittsburgh as compared to my apartment here in Chicago. But he got used to it, and I think that he started to really like it there. He at least played with my cats and my bird. He would watch my bird from the dining room table, because the way that it's set up, we have the dining room table, and then the bird cage is hanging by a china closet above the dining room table, kind of. So he would just sit there and watch my bird, but my other cats also do that, and I mean, that's a cat thing. They like to watch the bird and kind of see what's going on, but none of them have ever really tried to get the bird or anything. So one day, it was just a couple days before I left home to come back to Chicago. It was about 7 in the morning, and I was sleeping, and I heard this huge bang downstairs. And I woke up a little bit, and I thought, well, I would go check that out, but I think it's just my mom leaving for work. She probably dropped something, or I don't know, but she's probably downstairs. It wasn't her. But anyway, I didn't pay any mind to it. So later, I got up a couple hours later, and I went downstairs, and something just felt really off, and just really weird. And usually, when I walk downstairs, all the cats will kind of come and just be walking around and just kind of greet me and say good morning and whatever. So, especially Milo. He's a really good cat, and he always likes to come say hi in the morning. But he wasn't anywhere to be found. I didn't know. But I wasn't really paying much attention to anything because I had to get somewhere and run a few errands. So, I just wasn't really looking around or thinking anything was wrong. So I left the house, and then I came back a few hours later after I had finished running errands and doing what I had to do. So I walked in, and the cats still weren't really coming around, and finally Milo kind of was just walking around and just came up to me a little bit, and then I noticed that the bird cage was no longer hanging in the dining room. So I walked over to it, and I saw it on the floor. All of the bird seed had been kind of spread out on the entire floor. The roof of the bird cage was ripped off, and my bird was dead. So that had happened one other time when one of my cats kind of knocked it down, but my bird got out, and I was able to catch him after that because he just went somewhere my cat didn't chase him. But anyway, so I was like, oh, well, maybe the same thing happened. So I looked around and I looked around. I didn't hear my bird because he's a finch, so he has a really, really distinct tweet. But I didn't hear him. So I walked around my house a little bit, and I noticed that there were feathers kind of everywhere. There was a trail of feathers leading into my computer room. So I thought, oh no, this cannot be good. So I walked into my computer room, and I saw my bird, well, not completely my bird, but my bird's feet and my bird's head. My poor little bird had been murdered, and the only thing that was left of him was his head and his feet. So I was really freaked out. I just looked at it and kind of gasped. And I knew that there could only be one culprit for this bird murder, and that was Milo, because my other cats had gone this long without murdering the bird. And Milo he's very playful, he's still a kitten, I mean, it's kind of what he does. So I was so mad at the whole thing. I couldn't believe that he had actually eaten my bird. So I went and I found Milo, who was in the other room, and I picked him up and I yelled at him and I said, "You cannot murder this bird!" And I showed him the bird cage, I showed him what he did, and then I locked him in the back room to tell him that that was not what you do. So then I had this crime on my hands that I had to clean up, which I was also not prepared for, because I'm not a big fan of dead things. So I called my mom, and she was still at work, and I asked her if she would be home soon, if she could help me or just give me support while I did cleaned up this terrible thing that had just happened. But she wasn't coming home soon. I was really sad. And I tried to call kind of all my friends just to tell them what had happened, because I was still kind of in shock, because this pet that I had had since I was 15, so for almost 6 years, I had just been killed by my cat, who I loved. But anyway, my best friend ended up being able to come over, and he helped me clean up the entire cage, which was still such a mess. And he picked up the remains of my bird, and we kind of just threw everything away, said a little prayer for my birdie, and there's still feathers all over my house, just to show what had happened. We couldn't clean up all of those, because that must have been a wild chase, because there were feathers everywhere. So yeah, that is the story about how my cat, Milo, is